1. An artist arranges 5 shells on a shelf. The shelf hovers in midair, juts out from a milky, dark background. Whorls, crenellations, spirals, speckles, and striations glow softly under an unseen light source. An austere color palette sharpens our sense of scale and shape. A small peach shell lies like a recumbent amphora. A large chalky one balances on a series of fang-like spikes. 3 are oriented with their apertures towards us. We glimpse their inner voids. This shelf might be floating in outer space. An adage of my mother's returns. Odd numbers work best for arrangements. The Dutch artist Adrian Court will complete shells on a stone plinth in 1698. At the time that he places the shells on the shelf to paint them, they are highly prized by collectors. Carried long distances to the Netherlands from Dutch colonies, the shells are part of the vast circulation of resources that will swell capital in the Western world. That the shells have been taken from a country from which much will be taken is not apparent. Their striking pose against darkness shows them to advantage, but it also erases their context. Coercion and beauty exist in their willful grouping against a black background. They are at once collector's items and colonized objects. And as viewers, we savor their exoticism rather than imagine their plunder. 2. In 2008, I purchased a yellow-crowned Amazon parrot named Aria on Craigslist. I'm trying to improve the end of my mother's life. In pursuit of this goal, I drive to a suburban development tucked within the cancerous sprawl around Indianapolis to pick up the parrot. I know nothing about parrots. My mother has recently said she would like one. She thinks a talking animal will make her less lonely. My parents already have a cat and 2 rambunctious dogs, and my mom's illness, combined with my father's dementia, puts caring for pets on an increasingly long list of things neither of them should be doing. But I'm on a mission to fulfill wishes while I can. So I pull over at a nondescript ranch house and fork over $600. The small house is filled with birds. The people tell me that Aria was the pet of a friend who can no longer take care of her after having a baby. I gaze around at the cages lining the living room wall, the bird toys tossed across the tan shag carpet, the parrots walking around everywhere, and realize that something's probably off. But soon I'm driving home with a shiny green creature, crowned with a yellow lick of flame, her head cocked curiously, her eyes reptilian, flashing, inscrutable. 3. At the time of its construction, the Great Conservatory at Chatsworth House is the largest glass building in England. Broad, translucent walls and a soaring 60-foot ceiling form a collection of exotic plants: palms, moss, ferns, and aquatic lilies. 2 carriages can drive within the jungle of the conservatory side by side, allowing women in silks to gaze with an air of unfocused triumph on the spoils of imperial plant hunting in the dead of winter. Conservatory architect and Chatsworth House head gardener Joseph Paxton has created a protective environment for his transplants. He is a virtuoso at enabling plants to thrive in glass cages. He becomes the first person in England to bring the giant Amazonian lily to flower, which he accomplishes in a smaller glass house with a special tank to accommodate 5-foot lily pads strong enough to sustain the weight of his young daughter Annie. His glass houses exemplify the careful control and culture that supports conquest. They are an etude of the artificial. Sunlight alone does not allow plants like water lilies and lotus to survive the cold in England. So tunnels are dug under the Great Conservatory. Wagons run on subterranean rails and cart 300 tons of coal to 8 underground boilers over the course of one winter. These coal fires warm 7 miles of hot water pipes and create concentrated pockets of steam. This steam coaxes the plants in the glass house into an expensive and unlikely existence. It's 1840, and this dense, hidden network of energy that warms the plants is part of a newly ubiquitous fossil fuel system that will eventually warm the whole planet. During the First World War, the price of coal rises, and the current Duke of Devonshire cannot afford to heat the plants. So the plants die, in the 1920s, the Duke decides on dynamite and blows up the greenhouse. 4. My mother dies, and I realize that I have inherited, among other things, a parrot. I feel ambivalent about Aria, but I envision her docilely perched on my mom's shoulder or knee by the hour while she struggled with cancer, and Aria gradually takes on the implacable presence of a religious icon, unfriendly yet benevolent, like a colorful Byzantine saint. So I move Aria to a new apartment in Brooklyn, along with a Steinway bee, 2 cats, 4,000 books, several 100,000 vintage postcards, and a collection of opera glasses. I decide this is also the right time to move in with my boyfriend, who paces around Brooklyn in the sweltering August heat trying to find an apartment we can afford that is big enough for 3 pets, my parents' stuff, and ourselves. In the new apartment, I soon discover that putting an Amazon and a classical guitarist in the same space poses unique challenges. My boyfriend practices Bach for several hours a day, and Aria constantly sings along, off pitch and off rhythm, a one-woman version of the Shags. Aria also shows an uncanny propensity for unprompted vocal display. Her lexicon includes frequent shouting of the phrases, "Life's not fair," "bad bird," and improbably F word. Not fuck, by the way, but F word. Between chanting her favorite expressions, Aria enjoys flights of out-of-tune coloratura. At other times, she shouts like a person screaming gibberish on the telephone. Soon after we move in with her, I searched Amazon Parrot on YouTube to see if other parrots vocalize this way. They do not. There's one small room at the side of our otherwise open apartment, and after my considerate boyfriend adopts an air of perpetual martyrdom, I move Aria's cage there. We're using this room as a closet, and I feel a pang of guilt at moving Aria out of our living space, but the closet has a large window next to which I position her cage. When I'm home, I leave the cage's top open, but for many months, Aria refuses to budge. I often come to the room and sit on the floor, watching her, keeping her company. She tilts her head and focuses on the seagulls winging by. When I offer her my arm to help her descend from the cage, she tries to bite it. Eventually, Aria learns to slide down a leg of her cage like a fireman on a pole. She walks haltingly out of balance across the hardwood floors. Aria's liberation from the closet, while welcome, results in a confusing array of inter-creature problems within the apartment, pitting cat against bird, bird against person, person against cat. In handling cat against bird interactions, person against person problems arise. Aria also poops freely as she walks, leaving small deposits that need to be scrubbed from the floors after all of her peregrinations. In a number of months, we slide into an uneasy equilibrium. Aria dislikes my boyfriend, me, and the cats. But we take care of her, and she seems to extract some pleasure from her toys and ranting. She refuses to eat fruits or vegetables considered, along with seeds, an appropriate diet for parrots. Instead, she gulps down bowlfuls of rainbow-colored pellets that we buy at PetSmart, a bird equivalent of Fruit Loops. The central hurdle shifts to cleaning Aria's cage. Parrots poop almost constantly, a gray-green watery mix that hardens into cement-like clumps within a matter of hours. Because I procrastinate, Aria's poops accumulate into tall, jagged structures at the bottom of the cage, a miniature archipelago of guano islands. Every time I initially approach her filthy cage with vigor and enthusiasm, but within 20 minutes of scrubbing the shit-encrusted bars, the tears come. I sit back on my heels, gripping paper towels, shoulders shaking, staring up at Aria. She has retreated to the highest point of her cage, the sunlight streaming on her blazing green feathers and warming up the small room like a hothouse. She's cocking her head, her pupils pulse in fury as she stares back at me. "Bad bird," she announces disdainfully. Thank you.